Hi guys, welcome.
The security
Session.
phone
Good
isn't
to see you.
very useful, is it?
No.
They tell you, we don't know. Call the
Yeah.
tenant.
Same thing.
I'm usually pretty organized about this, and I swear I wrote to her and said, okay, here's when we're having it. Okay, so let me.
We found a wandering security guard.
He let you up?
Yeah, luckily.
He didn't argue or anything.
We got arguments. Said it's
You're not in the
list.
book. Get
Not in the
lost.
book. Well, it's not.
No, I didn't want to do that.
So are you set up, Sean? Or?
No, I think we're broadcasting already now. Yes, we are.
All right. I'm enjoying this hangout. It should be terrifically exciting.
What's new?
Summer's here almost. Summer is here.
Yeah. Too hot.
Yeah, it's
Actually, it's been remarkably temperate so far. We haven't had any of the boiling
It's
days.
here. It's
I'll
here
wait
now
for it.
for the next week or so.
Good old Gulf of Mexico visiting us.
It must be.
Right, I'm using the link, and it just takes me to some useful help screen. No, this article was not helpful. So he's going to read this in 3 weeks' time and go, oh, that's interesting.
Whoa.
Something going.
Infinite regression.
Yeah, don't do that.
It's okay. Task switch or screen switch back to your thing, and it should be fine.
Problem is, I can't see my notes. And if I can't see my notes, I don't know what I'm going to say.
One of these days we should get Damien to record how he uses Vim as his presentation system.
He did do.
Well, you know what the definition of insanity is? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So I have a URL here, and it's not taking me to the Hangout, which I'm confused about.
Okay.
Are you logged in as TPM?
No, I'm logged as myself, but I emailed the URL from, well, Perlmongers to here. Oh, there's a message from Sachin.
yeah.
Probably something like, I'm downstairs. Yeah. Wow. Oh, I guess the elevator, you can get to the 14th floor, but nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, if we can have a meeting at your place next month, that would be lovely.
Yeah, we good. I got the approval from management, so we're good to go.
All right.
I go down and get him, or I guess I can't.
You can't kick it back up.
I don't know what the PC is doing. What are you doing?
You can call
Stop
the elevator,
it.
but it's only if they happen to be in the right one.
Should be a trick, like if you get on 6, you hold the 6 button, go down, and as long as you don't let go of it, you should be able to come back.
Definitely seems to be
What about the stairs? Could we can have someone holding the ones up on this floor and someone going down to let someone else in.
It would be
There's
pretty
probably an
hilarious.
alarm,
It
though,
would be a
isn't it?
pretty hilarious security plan if the elevators are all locked down, but the stairs are available.
Look, if the stairs are set up for egress only,
Correct.
They have to be open for egress.
question is whether they're alarmed or not.
See, that's what I want to see
On your screen.
on my screen.
You gotta go split screen instead of screen sharing.
It is split screen.
Treat that as a separate.
It
monitor.
is.
Is it?
Yeah. That's a pain. What doesn't matter. I can talk about what's in there anyway.
You need a second computer to look at your notes.
Yeah.
Maybe open it up on your phone for your notes or something.
It's all on the computer. I did not expect this.
You can do a keynote on the phone, can't you?
It's not Keynote.
That's your problem.
That's my problem.
Fancy. Or non-fancy, actually.
Well, and then the other thing is,
You can use meet.google.com for video calls. Isn't that how it's-
do you need,
How do I join Hangout? How do I join Hangout?
When you go to the URL, what does it bring you to?
I just it's, get started with Hangouts.
Okay.
Click join. Okay. Send a link to start a Hangout with me. Okay. Trying to blah 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 blah.
I can see the
Start an
YouTube
empty
page.
video call.
You
It
sure you
pops
got
up
the full
inviting people.
URL?
Copy a link to share. Paste that link in the. I did that.
If you're missing the end of the URL, it might just send you back to a default.
Join Hangout. We're live. Oh, okay. Unfortunately, maybe there's a join meetup link, a join Hangout link. that I'm missing.
No, don't do
Sometimes
that.
I feel like a monkey here. I don't see the join
They're operating
Hangouts.
on a variation of Facebook's motto: move fast, break things, and don't tell anybody.
You know what?
Alrighty. Well,
Exit. Shrink. Play. Perfect. Well, I can see my notes now.
great.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I opened a terminal window and went into Vim. Screw this fancy stuff.
It wouldn't be a Perlmongers meeting without some sort of technical mess. All right, take it away.
Am I broadcasting? Is the question.
Yeah, I think you are. Fulco said you were there.
Am I still there? Because this is doing things.
Fulco's supposed to hang us.
Excellent.
Just checking it, see if you're broadcasting.
Please.
Switch browsers. Unlike Safari.
You know, and it's supposed to be an open web world.
Oh, I think it doesn't work in Chrome, does it?
It does work.
All right. Fulco says, yes, broadcasting, seeing the title page, and the audio is good.
Excellent.
All right, take it away, Sean.
All right. That's perfect. Well, semi-perfect. There we go. All right. My name is Sean Sorchetti. I've been here before for a lot of years. It took quite a long break, but came back. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about divorcing the system, or let's see, removing the dependency on root access. Years ago, we all required root access to install any modules. You had to deal with the sysadmins who were reluctant to give up the keys to the kingdom in order to install any Perl modules, and I was one of those sysadmins for many years, so fighting with myself to get the modules installed. There were tools to get around it at the time. You could use lib or update your addinc to point to different locations, but they were cumbersome as well. And the main part was the Perl that was always bundled with your OS lagged behind whatever version you actually wanted to run. And so some better tools were written. And we're going to talk about them. Two of them, PLENV and Carton. Starting off with PLENV. It's a Perl binary manager written by, and I apologize, Takiro Matsuno. Basically, it's an implementation in Bash that provides wrappers around Perl executables. And Perl is installed in your user space so that it doesn't require any special permissions, and you can install any version you want. This is my Walla text. I took this directly from the GitHub site for PLENV. For anybody who's used Perl Brew and wants to know why you would use PLENV instead, this goes into a great description as to why. I just need to advance my notes here. Hold on. Okay. So I already said the Perls are installed in your home directory. The implementation is in Bash with a simple shell script and about the ship. Thank you. I don't want to hear you. Installing PLENV is fairly painless. They do offer multiple ways of doing the installation. If you have it on Mac, it does work with Homebrew, and you can just brew install it. If you want to check out the latest version, you can just git clone it. And there's also a manual neckbeard installation. And the instructions are really good on how to get this installed, and it's quite simple. I just use Homebrew method. Well, sorry. For my laptop, I use Homebrew method. For servers, we use Ansible to be able to deliver PLENV on each of the servers. The PLENV help provides an overview of every command you can run, and you can issue PLENV help command, and it'll tell you more details about each of the command. I'm going to run through the main ones and the ones that help us the most. Okay. So when you install Perl through PLENV, it installs into your home directory under tilde.plenv. And you can see here that I have multiple installations of the same versions of Perl. I hope you can see. Yeah, I have 5221 and 5221 debug.
So that's a version of 5221 you built with all the debug switches turned on?
Correct.
Wow.
So it's insanely helpful, and you can easily switch between them. And I'll show you how to change the versions temporarily. Those versions of Perl are running on my laptop, and depending on what project I'm in, I can switch between them. You can list the versions of Perl that are available to be installed, and this is one of those commands that I always forget because it's PLENV install, but how do I get the list? Well, it's -- list. I expect it to be PLENV list or something, but it's install list. And you can see there are a lot of versions to install. I've blocked some of them out because it just keeps going. There's release candidates, trials, cutting edge, and there's quite a few versions in there that you should not be running. 560. 528 is available now. I just installed that last night.
Who is determining what's available?
It picks it up off MetaCPAN, I believe. So as soon as it's available for update, PLENV knows about it and makes it available. And they don't take very long to install. All right. So there's an as directive that allows you to create your custom installs. You use a name that any name that you want to identify the version of Perl that you had installed. And the nice thing is your modules are separated per version of Perl. The installation is very simple. This is me installing 522 with the debugging option on.
So what do you mean by module separated? Is it the CPAN modules you're talking about? They are
Yeah,
being-
everything is separated.
So all the modules for each version of Perl are stored under that directory, is that it?
Yes, and I'll get into that too a little more.
So every Perl it installs, it basically has to download
Everything,
all the source code and then build the executable for that platform.
yes.
Wow.
You can add any of the options that are available to build Perl. These are common ones that we use because we don't need man pages for every single version that we have. And
Probably saves some time and space.
it does. And you can see this project actually required threads. Yeah. I still am running it though. All right. I'm sorry, my notes and where I am have gotten out of sync. And then I've uniquely named this one, well, it's still my debugging. No, sorry, this is my threaded. So if I want to switch to that one, I want the name 522-threaded, and we'll switch over to that. All right. Now we can get into more interesting stuff. So you're allowed to select the versions of Perl that you want to install, and there's 3 different settings, local, shell, global. The scope of which increases as you go through the list. So local being the most restricted, global is kind of the default that if you don't have a local set or a shell set, you get global. If you have a shell set, but you're in a directory, you get local. And I'll go through that some more too. That one's a little harder to explain. All right. So in a directory tree, you use the local command with the name of the Perl you want to use. And if you don't use the as flag, it's just the version. And it just stores it in a simple text file in your directory that can be checked into Git, which we do. It's a .perl-version, and it's simply the version number or name that you want to use. As soon as you enter that directory, PLENV knows that the file is there and switches to that version of Perl. Any subdirectories below that directory will also get the same version of Perl. So you don't need to worry about, okay, I've gone into the lib directory, now it's going to change Perl versions on me. No, it'll maintain it the whole way down. Let's see. Okay. Shell is the next highest one. It sets the version for your current running shell. The version stays in place until you close the shell. You move in, or you change to a new version that you want, or you enter a directory that has PLENV version file, or you can use the unset command, and that'll just remove that setting. Now, I discovered while I was writing this that this command does not work with fish shell. And so to get around that, I use the environment variable PLENV_version, which does the exact same thing. So we actually use this inside of Jenkins in the build. We have an environment variable that gets set, that environment variable is set, and we can change versions within Jenkins so we can test against different without making too many changes.
Is PLENV a alias or something so that it gets evaluated in the context of the current shell? And set something?
Yes. When you do the installation, it adds into your bash RC an init script. And on that init script, it sets everything up. And so it's a function that every time you run, it evaluates the variables. And works that way. Okay. So on a global setting, this is just, sorry, you use the global subcommand and you can set the version of Perl everywhere. This way you can avoid system Perl altogether, but still have a default. And I use this a lot for utilities that I use that I'm not developing but are written in Perl, and then that way they all get installed in one location and I don't need to worry about them using a system Perl.
Like global, do you mean like global just for you, or global for everyone?
Global for me.
Who's using just for you?
Just for me. It's actually stored in my PLENV version directory. It's actually right there. .PLENV version is the file that it writes to, and it's going to say it's always in that directory. You can install PLENV. Hard name to say over and over again. You can install it globally and have it set as the root user, and there is a etc file that you can use as well. So if you wanted to say everybody's using the same, it is available. I have not done that because I'm more concerned about keeping myself going.
I just call it plan.
Yeah, I know, but, and I'll get into that further. Plan, kind of the history, there's RBENV as well for Ruby.
Yeah.
Well, what does RBENV say? You can't, so I've always called it. I started with RBENV.
You say etc and I say etc. So it's,
Yeah.
spell that one out.
Well, let's get Civen.
Civen.
Yeah.
SVN.
One of our coworkers calls it Civen. I've never heard that before.
SVN.
Subversion.
Calls it Civen, so SVN. Civen.
SVN is Civen.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
It took us a while in the meeting to figure out what
It's
exactly
the successor of SIX, I guess.
All right. Okay, this goes into a little bit more detail about where everything is stored, basically because we had this issue with a customer we were working with. Our home directories were on NFS, and when you install PLENV and it installs Perl into your NFS mounted home directory, it's slow. Everything has got to read over the wire, and So what we would do is install on the local temp directory that allowed us to keep them on each server itself. And because this is just a simple shell script, you can easily override the values that it's requiring. So you can set the root directory, and then it's just adding the path. And the last line before the end of the if statement is the initializer for it. And that gets run normally in your bash RC, or whichever shell you choose.
The way that's structured, it looks like you're starting a daemon.
Actually, I'm just checking to see if it's installed. So that way, if I'm on a server that doesn't have it, I'm not going to get error messages saying none of these directories exist, or that PLENV isn't available to initialize. So,
So your response to an error message is shut up and fix it.
some days. If I feel like doing it right.
No, I mean, you're telling the system, don't complain about that, just shut up and fix it.
Okay, so I mentioned about modules being installed into the directories, and that'll be for any module you install. And here you can see, I just did a quick check to see where B is installed, and it too falls under .plenv. Versions has all of the versions of Perl, and then each individual has its own number and name.
If you're using, let's say, if you're using local libs, does that then override the PLN?
They'll work together.
They'll work together.
Yes. Because it'll fall back, well, it'll use your local libs first and then fall back to that directory. So your @inc is taken care of.
You're probably asking for it. You do both of them at the same time.
Yes, probably. I probably deserve whatever I get.
Well, no, because you want it to be able to search what's in your local libs, as well as be able to pull core modules from the Perl directory, right? Because you're not going to override the core modules in local lib.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about version differences. Like if you've got a module that's built a while ago and it maybe uses 5.18 and then you've got 5.26 or 5.28, is that going to be a problem?
5.26 or 5, they're not going to see it unless it's in local lib, right? If it's
That's what he's saying. That's what I'm saying. If you've got an old, like a 10-year-old module from whatever, in local lib, and then you're using 5.26, 5.26 is going to say, okay, oh, I've got local lib. Okay, I've got to use. I don't have that module, so I'm going to go and look. There's the local lib. I'll use that. And use the 10-year-old module, and then some brand new core modules. And I just wonder if there might be some problems.
I'll get to a solution for you. Okay, let's. What about cpan minus? How do you install modules in this environment? Well, luckily, PLENV includes install cpan-m. Simple command line option puts cpan minus in, and you can go ahead and run cpan-m. One of the things this does do, there's a command called PLENV rehash that goes out and looks for all of the scripts and binaries that you've installed that go along with Perl. It creates symbolic links from the shim, so that way it's in your path and can run anywhere. This updates those. So as an example, this command install cpan-m and automatically adds cpan-m into the tools. So it's in your path and you don't have to worry about collisions. What is rehash? This is why it was easier with my notes available. So when the scripts are installed into the bin directory with your Perl, as you can see in this one here, the cpan-m is in 5.26.1 bin. That's not going to show up in your path until you run PLENV rehash, at which point it does the symbolic linking that's required to point at that version and know that that command's available. Otherwise, and I think this was confirmed on my train ride in, it'll go to system and find cpan-m and run cpan-m from your system and put your modules in the wrong place. So this does it by default for cPanM, so you don't have to worry about it. But something like prove, if you have go ahead and execute prove, and you haven't rehashed, it's going to pull your system prove, not pull the prove you're expecting. And this we have run into multiple times.
Anything that installs in file like Perl tidying as well.
Yes, Perl tidying. So to upgrade your version of Perl, it's the same as installing a new version. You just tell it PLENV install 528.0, and it'll go pull it, install it. The nice thing is it includes a migrate modules, which will read from one version of Perl all the modules you have installed and installed them in the new version. So if you've got, to throw out Catalyst installed on 526, which has got a lot of modules on it, and you want to upgrade to 528, you can install 528, do migrate modules, and it'll take care of moving all of the modules across, recompiling as needed. So it does make upgrading pretty painless.
So it'll recompile the package that it downloaded originally. It doesn't necessarily go back up to cPan and get the latest version.
I think it just does the installation through cPanM again.
It might have a local copy of cPanM's cache.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We'll go to the cache and say, oh yeah, here's that thing I downloaded. Now we're going to install it over here.
Since it's trying to install the same version.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There might be a newer version on cPan. It should be.
Yeah, it should go same to same.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not something I normally do, and I'll get into that too.
Things that willfully update themselves are potential problems Microsoft have found recently.
Okay, so while you have PLENV, and I've mentioned some of these before, there is an NENV command, which is a separate download, but it allows you, if you're doing cross-language development, you can install RDNV, PyENV, GoENV, and it does the exact same type thing for these other languages. You can install different versions, and they're all of these ENV bundles from the languages work pretty similar to each other. So there's a couple tweaks here and there, but they all follow the same command structure and generally abilities. Before I move on to Carton, any more questions on PLENV?
Yes, one. Obviously, it's fine if you've got one individual with one machine doing multiple versions, but if you've got multiple people on one machine and they're all downloading their own individual versions of Perl, you could wind up with rather a lot of space being taken up by redundancy. Is it possible? Is there any way to, if you like, have a centralized process, or does that completely go against the concept?
It goes against the concept because the idea is to get away from permission requirement. And if I install in one directory and you install in that same directory, we're going to collide. And then you need sudo access, which you've got root then, right?
Yeah,
That's
that'd be good for
the whole point of this is not root.
No, get away from
But you could have non-root, gone through non-root situations in the past where you just have an account that's basically the other group, everyone's got access to it. So you
like
can
a
share it.
shared application ID. And we have done this on production servers where the application ID has a PLENV installation and it manages everything underneath of it. And we sudo to that account to be able to use it. So yeah, you can get away from non-root.
Because my thinking was that PLENV was really only a development tool that we use in production as well.
Oh, yes. Yes. Because it does make the management a lot easier. And as I said, if, well, Debian in general has an older version of Perl, and we're not cutting edge, but
You like to be more current than what Debian provides.
more current, or in some instances, we've developed for this version, it's a production, I don't want that version changing. So if Debian happens to move ahead, we're still on 5.22, and we can still do system updates and not worry about it clobbering our application.
The element of the least surprise, right?
Yeah.
If you're on 5.22, you know when something would happen, suddenly you're on 5.24 and things are breaking.
Correct.
Also, system Perls are often kitchen sink. They'll have threads enabled. Threads are slow. So even if you're not using threads, a Perl built with threads built into it will give you a performance decrease. So recompiling it is going to give you better performance on your Perl binary.
Yeah.
And because it's so painless to do, you get full flexibility. You don't have to worry about compiler options.
Well, do you,
What about performance difference?
It's like at least 5%, isn't it?
Yeah,
With
something like
threads.
that.
It's significant enough, yeah. It's, when the tools are available and easy to use, it's worthwhile for your applications. And you shouldn't be using threads. They're beautiful.
do you find you ever run into missing libraries or header files to actually build Perl under PLM? I ran into that when I was trying it under Sigma at one point.
We have developer tools turned on and installed the developer packages, so everything we need is there generally. I like to keep them there for kernels and whatnot anyway. So
Painful ones are things like OpenSSL. If the system you're using has an old library and you want to use TLS 1.2 or 1.3,
yeah,
you need to install a custom OpenSSL and link your headers. You're installing SSL UI or something.
Yeah.
Using those headers, and that can be.
I had to do that with this laptop because the client we were working on had a different SSL requirement than latest. So I had to install a separate SSL and then have NetSSL Leahy. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
That module use those headers specifically.
Back to CPAN modules. Is it recommended to not use local lib with this, or is it recommended to use local lib and along with it?
I wouldn't. I'll use what I'm talking about next, but I have had projects that required installation of modules inside of a system type Perl. And for that, I just spawned off another installation with the project name and then just let it install into the system default. And, like, the project has its own lib directory, but it's from CPAN, its requirements, everything's going to be self-contained. If I want to get rid of it, I can just delete the directory. It'll clean it all up for me too. There's one project we have where they install a lot of modules up front and then go into what I'm going to talk about next to install more modules. And that's the way I did it to keep it clean. Alrighty. Anybody questions on chat?
No, there's.
Okay.
Since I sorted out my microphone, everybody's been very quiet.
All right. So now I've talked about it or skirted around it. Carton.
Yagawa.
Yes. And I fast forwarded my notes way too far. Okay, so Carton maintains a list of your required versions and dependencies, and it allows you to lock down your modules to specific versions. And all of these are managed through a file called CPAN file. It's very easy to install with PLENV. After you install CPAN-M, just install Carton. Okay, this is an example of a CPAN file. This is another Miyagawa creation for managing the modules. You just simply add into your file a line that says requires and the modules that you need. You can see there's a on test. So if you can actually tell it, I want to install test modules or I don't want to install test modules, and it'll put those modules in or out dependent on that. You can specify you need a minimum version. You can specify, I want this exact version, which is helpful if you find something wrong in one of the newer versions. Yeah. Run my mouse again. There we go. So installing the modules is pretty easy. You use carton install, and it'll read the CPAN file, and it'll install everything into a directory local. Local, it's called, right in your current working directory. When you run carton install, it writes out a file called cpanfile.snapshot. And inside of that is all of the contents of the local directory, what modules were installed, and I'll show you more on that. So the local directory is made up of these 5 directories. Bin is for the binaries. Cache is a cache of all the modules that were installed, so that way if you do happen to remove one and want to reinstall, it'll pull from there rather than going out to CPAN every time. It does use CPAN-M through a backdoor to be able to do the installation. And etc's configuration, lib is where all the modules are, and man is man pages. Inside the lib directory, it's the standard Perl 5 structure, so you have your Perl 5 directory and on. So you can execute commands with carton using the exec command, and this sets up your shell and inc to be able to access into the local directory. So if you've installed prove with carton, prove will show up in the path, but you can also execute other things that aren't inside carton, like Perl itself, or you can start up a bash shell. So carton exec -- bash will reopen bash with the carton environment set so that it'll look in local automatically. And we have a coworker that does this. I don't do it. I just type carton exec every time. But it's interesting that you can do that type of thing. So I mentioned the cpan file.snapshot, and this is where a lot of the magic happens. It's automatically generated, and I said magic, and I have a hatred of magic, so sometimes I love this file and sometimes I hate this file. You can see that all of the modules will be listed. They tell you where to find them on CPAN, what they provide at the version number, what they require with the specific version numbers, and that's what's installed in your local directory. So that way, every time you redo, and I'll fast forward, every time you redo an installation with -- deployment, you're getting the exact same version across all of your environments. We do this in our development environments. We maintain the cpan file.snapshot, and then it gets checked into Git, and we deploy it on production. And then we run carton install deployment, and it'll automatically go through and find anything that isn't already installed and install it at the exact version that we want. This is another one of those make it repeatable everywhere, so that way you're not getting anything unexpected. Yeah. So, love, hate, there are gotchas.
What?
Yeah, and I felt a lot of pain through these files, but they've gotten better. There used to be a lot of them, as I said, and I was trying to replicate them on the train, and when I was making up these slides to say, you know, here, look at this pain point. This is how you solve it. And I couldn't get the pain point to trigger again. So either it's gotten better and I know there's been new releases, so it may have been fixed, or I have forgotten how to trigger it. And the way we triggered it is just happenstance. And this happens, but there are still gotchas, and I will go through them. It's important for the meta YAML or the meta JSON files to be correct. And you can see here, there is this one module, and we ran into this string camel case, and we were running a previous version 0.02 whose meta YAML did not include a version number that it could that cpanm could parse. And when it wrote out the file, it says it's an undef version. When Carton runs against this, it throws up its hands and doesn't know what to do, and you have to fight with it to get it to install the version. So the change here is actually installing 0.03, and it makes Carton happy, and it'll do the actual installation. I've hit this a couple of times. This one, JSON access, I think, is another one that it's cpan minus. If it can't figure out the version, Carton isn't going to be able to deal with it, is what it comes down to. And you won't hit it if you're installing the module yourself with cpan minus. You'll hit it once you try and install deployment, because it's looking for specifics.
There's no warning that, hey, watch out, this isn't repeatable because we couldn't determine the version.
No, you just run into it when you try to do the install. You can see why the magic sometimes aggravates me.
When you install, you say, I want to install the latest version of string camels. It happily does it. But it updates the cpan snapshot file wrong, putting that on undef. When you try to deploy your application, and it says, okay, what version of string camel case do I have to install? Undef. It blows up. So unless you look carefully through that file or those types of things, you won't see it. And that file gets very big.
Yeah.
Like if you install Catalyst, there's 103 modules that get installed. Each one of those is listed in that snapshot file, the exact version that you install.
And some of those may have their own dependencies, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it cascades down, but it's 103 altogether, I think.
For
just the base Catalyst install. It's a huge number.
All right. The other issue that we run into is a module that's not required. And the reason we run it, two of our coworkers run Linux and us two run MacBooks. Skitch has a requirement for Mac system directory that is through another module. I think it's file homedir. So Skitch requires file homedir. File homedir only requires Mac system directory if you're on a Mac. So Carton doesn't know that you're going to install it. And when your coworker goes and tries to update the cpan file.snapshot, they remove Mac system directory. And then we try to install it on our local to say, update us, and Skitch fails to install because it can't find a prereq. The moral of this story is if it's a removal from cpan file.snapshot, don't commit it. Keep your removals. Having extra modules in the file doesn't hurt you, but a missing one will not install.
Problem, the Mac system directory is not portable. Could be a Linux version of it that's a null module.
Just return go see Linux. Right?
There's no problem with installing it on Linux. It's just
It'll just never get called.
The module author is trying to be nice by not installing stuff that's not required for that system. So they're saying, you don't need this module, so why would I install it? And if you did, I'm sure there's a lot of people bitch about it, saying, why do I have this module installed? I'm not on a Mac. So,
and I don't think it complains. Or I don't think it actually does the installation on a Linux system, because we have the requirement in, and it gets removed, so it means it's never there.
It's a dynamic makefile, so the makefile will look at what system it is, and it'll decide what the dependencies are based on that.
I'm
It's
just,
smart and it's nice.
Yeah.
But it means the magic breaks sometimes.
it is magic.
But sure,
Yeah.
Arthur C. Clarke.
So to get around this, and probably why I didn't run into a lot of these problems, and this is Case found this. What we do is when we first have our CPAN file, you do a carton install deployment, and that'll just bring out your base packages that everybody needs. You update your requirements in your CPAN file, and then we run CPAN minus to do the installation of a new module. So if I can't even think of an example now. If we had a requirement for cPanel JSON, you'd do the full install, update CPAN file input requires cPanel JSON, and then run cPanM. And cPanM will read that cPan file, and with the -L local will install the module into local, the same as carton will. And then you run carton install, and it updates your snapshot file, so your snapshot file is always clean. We had an issue where we would, say, Catalyst was in the cPan file, and you run carton install the first time, and it goes out and says, okay, well, I'm going to install Catalyst, and it goes and pulls the latest version, not the version of the file version we have locked down. Right. And then it overwrites everything that has to do with Catalyst with the latest version that was installed. By doing it this way, using cPanM, it only installs that one module. It won't go outside of that. It keeps it clean and me sane. So another gotcha is when you upgrade Perl, and this goes along with what you were asking, Alex. There is no disconnection between what's in local and the version of Perl that's installed. So if you want to move from 5.2.2 to 5.2.6 and you have excess modules installed and need recompiling, carton doesn't deal with that. It just sees it's already installed and thinks it's going to be able to use the versions that already exist. So the way I got around this, I can't remember if I put this on a separate, yeah. The way I got around this was to, oops.
Too soon?
Yeah. To create a symbolic link and a version-specific directory of local, or Perl version-specific directory of local. So in this case, it would be, well, let's go to 522. So my local symlink would point to local.522, and all of the modules would be installed through that. Carton knows nothing about it. It just sees local and writes it. And then if I want to switch Perl version, I just create a new directory to house that. So local 528, update my symbolic link, run carton install deployment, and everything will be installed again on the new version of Perl. Because all of those excess modules and their libraries get installed inside of local, so they can't mix. If that makes sense. It's a hard one to explain.
It makes sense. It's been a while since I used LNSF, symbolic and force.
Yes, so that way if it already exists, don't overdo it.
I was able to infer what it meant from this one.
This process we actually have running inside of Jenkins scripts. So that way Jenkins automatically manages as we go through, and it'll switch over, and we have it in Ansible to do deployment. So if we ever want to upgrade Perl outside, it'll automatically go through and do the shifts around the local directory as needed.
So you could have Jenkins test your application on multiple Perl versions.
Yeah.
You have the same code base, and you have multiple local directories with all the dependencies installed, and then you use Plenv to apply the different Perl versions. A lot of power in this.
Yeah, and you can go forward and back, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I can go 522, 524, 528, back to 522, and I don't have to reinstall everything every time.
I guess you could even install a development version, an odd number Perl,
Yeah.
and see how it behaves there. Just get kind of an idea of how it works and what might break. Interesting.
And it doesn't impact what you've got.
Symbolic links. That is a cool feature.
I think the real power of Carton is if you're developing multiple applications. If you want to use the same Perl, we don't install anything into the Clem Perl, any modules, all done by Carton. So this application has its own local dependencies. This other app that I'm working on has its own dependencies, and it might be a version newer here than it is over here. They don't conflict with each other. It gives you that separation and that control. And then Carton allows you to make sure that the rest of the developers in your team are using the exact same versions of the modules as well. So that's everybody's on the same plane, basically.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you might be developing something and you run into an error, you get someone else to test it, it goes, oh, it works fine here.
Works for me.
You run into those issues and it was a dependency, but how do you recover elsewhere? So, yeah. And with deployment. You don't want to write for one thing and then you go to deploy it and it installs all the latest versions and all of a sudden your deployment breaks. Fully test everything. Test it exactly the same way on
that's
Jenkins.
the kind of thing that drives operations crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of power in it. And it's not that hard to use. It's once
And
you get used to it.
The $64,000 question, which is how well is it supported?
Planned is very well supported.
Yeah, it's constantly updated.
Carton, I think, was stale for a little while because Miyagawa was working on a rewrite to deal with some of the issues. Like one of the issues he doesn't like is this version problem where Sean has talked about separate local directories. He's got a new idea, a new implementation, which he has released, but it's not ready. That handles that for you. But that kind of stalled as well. So he was working on this new one, which stalled development of Carton. And then he stalled development on the new version because other things got in the way. But just last month, a new version of Carton was released. So
Yeah.
it's still, I think it was part of the Perl Toolchain Summit where they did a lot of at a CPAN.
Oh,
Remember
right,
what,
right. What
Olaf.
Olaf
Olaf
was
was
talking about
talking
last
about.
month. Yeah.
So I think Miyagawa might have been there and development happened on Carton during that as well because it's toolchain stuff. This is all toolchain stuff. So a new release came out and it
The
seems to
toolchain stuff
fixed
is
a lot of
fascinating.
a lot of the niggly stuff that we had issues with were all cleaned up and stuff. So yes, it is still there. More people are depending on it, which means I don't think it's going to go.
Yeah, and that wasn't really a leading question. I'm just genuinely curious. Whenever I hear about, oh, there's this great tool, I think, okay, that's really good. Is it developed by one guy and he's gone off to do something else now?
Well, Miyagawa is 10 guys, isn't he?
Yeah, he doesn't count for one.
For the amount of stuff,
He
the
doesn't
amount
have
of
as
amazingly creative stuff that he writes, he must be 10 guys.
But I've seen and I've been in on the toolchain group making updates to it as well. So if they find bugs and whatnot, they do try to fix them as well. It's just the real big advancements are all by him.
And it's not new either. How long
No.
has it been around? I think quite a long time.
Yeah, it mimics bundler on Ruby, which is nice too. So
That's
around
also
some-
neat to see a bit of cross-fertilization from one language to another. Some language comes up with a cool thing.
The list there with NEN
again.
Yeah,
showed you how many follow that same structure.
And it's nice, and it takes people learning a different language to find these different tools and say, hey, we actually need that.
yeah. I've been using Perl for 20 years, so I'm at this point I'm kind of reluctant to jump in and go learn a new language. Unless I had like 2 months money saved, 2 years money saved up, so I could really halfway decent on a new language.
I think what I noticed with Carton and Plem specifically is we've used it extensively for the last year or two. And we just started a new project at a new company. Don't use it. Miss it.
Yeah.
I used to bitch and complain about the problems, but now I'm like, oh, this would be solved so quickly with this. And yeah, and I find if you use a tool and you can't use it anymore, you miss, there's something there. This has been helping me a lot.
PLM is a collection of shell scripts.
Yes.
Is what is Carton? Is it also shell scripts?
No, it's Perl.
Slightly off topic. You mentioned like you compile Perl in debug mode and then found it very useful. What's the use case that you actually use it? Or-
I was debugging SNMP communication with devices across a network, many million devices, and it was behaving slowly. So I really needed to get in there and figure out what was going on, and the only way to do that was with a debugging version of Perl.
And it turns out like pretty low level messages.
You need debugging to get profiling to trace. You can get, you can get very fine grained timing of time spent in different areas of the code.
Yeah, it's a lot lower level than you'd get without it. Even like I couldn't use NYT Prof to get at what I needed. It was too high of a level. I needed lower.
So when you, to follow up on that, so when you're using the debug Perl, what tools do you use then to figure out where the code is taking its time?
Oh, that's a whole other. I spent probably 3 weeks digging through slow running code, line by line, and it was threaded code. So
in the debugger?
yeah.
Yeah, it's a Perl-HT.
Sounds like become another tool.
And I have a whole collection of URLs I used to, as reference, and it was a big task, but it was the only way to solve the problem, and I did solve it. It's good. Yeah.
Fascinating.
But
All right.
think
Well, I asked in the chat if there were any questions, and there's no response. So.
All right. One day my slides will be up here.
Great.
I have slides from my last talk up there, but I was editing these on the train, so I didn't have time to post them. But I will post them, and I'll send out an email when they do get posted. Actually, I was trying to edit them on the train, but for some reason the car I was on was really bumpy, and as I was typing, I was actually hitting the wrong keys. And I get motion sick if I'm trying to do too much while moving. So the two did not add up well together.
Terrific. Okay. Well, I guess we can stop the broadcast.
All right.
Boom.
Nope. No, apparently I'm on.
Now we got you. All right. So
bring us back to local data. Cardinal planning.
where the heck?
Because
All
Cardinal
right.
kind of has an application level local lib for you. That local directory. So,
It's fine grained.
exactly. Local lib is just for you. Your own home directory and all your applications. This application
Okay,
specific.
there's stop.
If you're working on different contracts, it's very handy. There's different requirements. Different companies
Yeah, go to live
Perl,
control room.
version of Perl. So other place might be running a different version of Perl. So you can have that control.
Your WordPress company has dependencies. Like, do they have a CPAN file? And
This
you
new-
initialize the hub?
This new client, no. We don't even know what their production systems look like and how they install. Their whole process is a bit of a nightmare. You were mentioning that they use Subversion. When you're developing,
All right.
if you need code reviewed, you commit it to trunk.
Oh, I can always just close it.
Then somebody reviews it, and if it's good, stay. It's not.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
And everybody's committing to the trunk all the time, which is like you're supposed to be your main one.
They don't have like a developer